Okay, before we begin Daf Samech, I'd like to share for posterity a story which is incredible. Um, this, can you see it clearly? Okay. His name is Eliezer Goodman. He's my great-grandfather. He's my great-grandfather. I never saw him, obviously. He died in 1929. And he was my father's grandfather, and I was named after him. How I got this picture is a story that's unbelievable. Simcha, my son, is living, story goes back maybe 20 years, is living in Neve Yaakov, and the outskirts of Yerushalayim. And one day he's walking, and a woman looks out the window and says, "That's a Goodman walk. That's the way a Goodman walks." This is what the woman said. Anyway, went to Simcha's wife and said, "Is your husband a Goodman?" So his wife, Zelly, said, "I don't know." So Simcha comes home and Zelly says, "Are you a Goodman?" So he goes, "I don't think so. I'm a Stern. I'll ask my father." So I said, "Yeah, Goodman was my father's mother's name. Her name was Sima Goodman. That was my father's maternal mother." And woman said, "When I come to Eretz Yisrael, I should speak to her." Anyway, I came to Eretz Yisrael and I meet this woman and we start with the Goodmans. I said, and she mentions some names. I said, "Well, that was my great uncle, and that was my great uncle." And it turned out that we shared the same great grandfather, Eliezer Goodman. And she says, "Would you like to see a picture of him?" I said, "Would I like to see a picture of him? Are you crazy?" On the wall in a house in the Yaakov is the picture of the person that I'm named after that I never would have seen in a million years. That picture came off our wall in the Yaakov. He's buried in Washington Cemetery and McDonald Avenue with all the Goodmans and Stearns. They're all buried there. This is again, you're talking about American Yankees. These people came over before the turn of the centuries, before the 1900s, and he remained religious. He remained religious, and isn't that it's a story for the ages. By the way, he walked. That's a Goodman walk. I said, "What are you talking about? That's a Goodman walk. How in the, I don't know. How do you know a Goodman walk? How a Goodman walks?" She looked out the window, says Goodman walk, and she put two and two together. It's incredible. Hashem has his ways. It's an incredible story.
I assume
Okay.
it was an elderly lady.
No, she's not old. And as a matter of fact, she's the only religious person in her family. The Goodmans, my grandmother was religious, but her brothers, I think they all went off, except maybe one. One of them was very wealthy. He owned a piece of karka called Cedar Park, Bethel. He owned Cedar Park, Bethel, where a lot of people. That's why the family plot is there. The Stern and the Goodman plot is there. Yeah. Anyway, so that's interesting story. I thought. Okay, we're up to Daf Nun Samech Samech, and we're beginning on Nun Tes Amid Beis. We're discussing the halachas of Sa'ar and Devash being on a mincha, right? You can't have Sa'ar or Devash on a mincha. So a mincha schayta has to be what? It has to be dry. If you put shemen on it, it says like Sa'ar, you should not put shemen on it. You shouldn't put Devash on it. Right? You shouldn't put Sa'ar on it or Devash or shemen on it. Right? Devash or shemen. So it should be totally chareva. What happens if you do it? So we're going to have a discussion. We're beginning on Nun Tes Amid Beis. We're about 5 or 6 lines up. Rav Yitzchak by Yosef, Rav Yochanan. Nasan Mashu Shemen Al Gabe Kezayis Mincha. So again, you have a mincha, guys. It's the minchas chayta or the minchas kanais. They both have in common the mincha of the sota and the mincha of the chota. Again, the chota, if you just to jar your memories, that's the olav v'yorei. The guy walks into the base of mikdash where he's tamei, or she was edish, she was bitoy, and he's going to go ahead and bring this carbon. He's going to go ahead and bring this carbon. It's chareva. It's totally dry. So you put a drop on this carbon. You put a drop of oil, but it's kezayis of the mincha, puzzle. You're going to passel the mincha. So a mashu of oil will passel, provided that the area that it falls on of the mincha is the share of kazayas, is the share of kazayas. My timer says the Gemara because the pasuk says lo yasim Allah Hashem. What does lo yasim mean? It's called to be placed, guys. Yasim is mashma even a little bit. Then it says aleha on it ad ikashira until there's the shear. So, guys, lo yasim aleha shemen. It says lo yasim. I don't have the pasuk over here. Yeah, lo yasim aleha shemen v'lo yitin aleha levayna. So it says lo yasim aleha. Lo yasim is mashma a kol shehu. Aleha is mashma something. So memela is geshmak. Lo yasa aleha, even a little bit of shemen. Aleha on a kazayas of mincha. That's the first thing of Rabbi Yitzchak by Yosef in the name Rabbi Yochanan. V'amar Rabbi Yitzchak by Yosef, Amar Rabbi Yochanan another din. Nasan kazayas levaina al gabe mashahu mincha pasal. Now here's the opposite, guys. By mincha, it was a mashahu of a mincha and a kazayas of mashu of shemen and a kazayas of a mincha. By levina, it's a kazayas of levina on a mashahu of what of mincha. It's the opposite. It's the inverse, right? My timer. The pasuk says la yitain aleha levina kichatos hi la yitain ksiv. Now, what does la yitain mean? Ad the ikon nesina, right? Until there is a nesina. Good. La yitain aleha. Aleha is what? Have a riboy. Aleha means a big shear, a shear. Have a riboy acha riboy, and riboy acha ela lemayit. Okay, let's look at this then. Let's tell them. The lashon lo yasim means a little bit. The lashon of nasan means a shear. The nasan of aleha means a shear. So therefore, by shemen it said lo yasim. So even a little bit of shemen, aleha on the shear is going to pass them. By the minchas koyte minchas kanais. Now, lo yitain aleha levina. Lo yitain is mashma anasina. So that means you need a full share. It says aleha. So you say aleha, also you need a kazayas, right? Aleha means the full share. Okay. The event has ended. We don't have to worry about people joining us. So, however, this aleha follows the aleha by shemen. Lo yasm aleha, right? You shouldn't put shemen. Lo yitin aleha levina. It's aleha aleha. If you have two ribuyim, it comes to mayit that the amount of mincha for the levina to be on is even less than a kazayas. It's even a kol shu. So it's the inverse. By shemen, it's is yasim. It's a little bit, and aleha is the full amount. By by levina, it's nasan layitain nasan a full amount, and the lecha usually means the full amount, but it's the full amount after a full amount. In ribuy ella lemayit, it comes to what to exclude the full amount. Big in the army on the first din that you said as a fait to complete that the share of the shemen goes ahead, even a little bit will passel. The Bikadi Rabbi Yitzchak by Yosef, boy Rabbi Yochanan, a shaila, nasan mashu shemen al gabe kizayis mincha mahu. What's the din? Mi b'inin sima kinesina. Do you need layasim like layitain, and therefore you need the full share? Or not? In other words, this Ikadiyami is going back in the first din. What was that first din? A little bit on a share. He says, no, maybe it says lo yasim and it says lo yitain, not just like lo yitain is a full share, so too the lo yasim is a full share. Or no, is it independent? Then lo yasim will be a mashmahu like we learned in the first lashon. The Rambam says it's suffix. He does because it says teiku. We don't know the paskin like it says teiku. Nasan shemen al shireha. The Mishnah said if you put shemen on the shirayim, right, then it's okay. It's okay. That's not a problem. Tan Rabbanan. Lo yasala shemen v'lo yitain. Now this Gemara is a very funny havamina. Lo yasala shemen v'lo yitain lo levayna yachol b'shnei kohanim. I might think you need two kohanim to be over on the lav. Says Rashi, fellas. Yochel b'shnei kahanim, lo yischayvu shnei lavim. You won't be chayiv two lavim. At sheyiyu shnei kahanim, echad noisin shemen. One puts shemen on the chayta minchas chayta. The echad noisa levaina, and one puts levaina. One puts frankincense. Aval chad koyin, who only puts one, lo mechayiv el chad lav. If he puts both, so the havamina seems to be that what? That two separate kahanim. The havamina seems to be two separate kahanim. One lo yasim, but one lo yitain, and then Yeroiva. But if one person would do both, now there's a svara to say, fellas, once you put one on, right, it's puzzle. Guys, you have the minchas chayta, yeah? You put shemen on, yeah? It's out. So maybe the second guy's also out. Kamash Malanashi, no. If it's Zachazeh. Okay, Taisus has a different opinion. We'll go with Rashi's opinion. It's speaking La Yasim, one koyin. It's speaking at one mincha. La Yasim is one koyin. La Yitin is another koyin. I might think they're not over. Tamad Loimar, Aleha, Beguf Vishal Mincha. Right? We go in Gufa of the Mincha. The Gufa of the Mincha. And if you and Rabbi, the key over here is it says Nasan Echad Asa Es HaKarban, Es HaKrova, that one person burns it. In other words, what does the word Aleha do? What is the word it says Aleha? And then it says it's going on the Mincha. You're not over, you're over when you burn the carbon. So if one guy puts the carbon, one guy puts the shemen, one guy puts the lavoina, the one guy who burns it is the one who's chayav. In other words, that this layasim layitin is going on bisman of that krova, right? If you notice the last Gemara, it just said puzzle. When the shemen was on it, it passled the carbon. But you weren't over the Issa, right? You weren't over the Issa. Here we're describing being over the Issa. When are you over the Issa? B'shas hakrava. So that's the shachlif tari of the Gemara, Geshmak, guys. Initially, I thought, you know what? I put one guy and another guy. I would think you're only one lav. Kamash malon mincha. No, kamash malon. It's the burning. So if you burn a mincha schayta with shemen and levaina on it, you're going to be chayiv. That's the way the Brisker Rav explains according to Rabbeinu Gershom. Rabbeinu Gershom, if you look, he says one word. He says leishim. The last Rabbeinu Gershom on the page. Begufa shel mincha hakasa medaber layitin aleha leishim. Dafilu kayin echad. What does leishim mean, guys? It means putting it on the fire. The Brisker Rav is medayik from the one word of the Rabbeinu Gershom. That's why one person can be chayiv for both, because you don't go after the time he puts it on, you go after when he burns it. Guys, are good? Geschmack? Guys, you with me? I'm talking a lot, and it's an echo chamber in here. So the first part of the Gemara was talking about passling the carbon. You put shemen on it, it's going to be passel. You put the levaina on it, it's going to be passel, right? Because it's a chayta. Now, what about being over the lav? That requires, according to the Rabbeinu Gershom, based upon the Brisker Rav in this dialogue with Gemara. Two guys put it on. You might think they're chayiv. Kamash malon mincha. What's mincha? B'shas hakrava. Oh, b'shas hakrava. Very geschmack. One person be chayiv on both. One end. Very good. Tamalay me'aleh b'gufa shel mincha hakosim medaber. V'loy b'koyim yachal lo yitain kli al kli v'im nasan pasel. The Mishnah said, fellas, let's say you have a kli, and in the kli is shemen. This is the way Rashi learns. In the kli is shemen, and you put it on. Lo yasim, guys, look. Here's my carbon. Here's my carbon. Here's my glass with shemen. I'm putting it on over here. You might think you're chayiv. Lo yasim ala shemen. Did I place shemen on here? No, you're not, because it's a kli on top of a kli. So that's what the Gemara is going to say. I might think what? Tamaloima aleha. The gufa shel mincha is in the mincha zich alei in the mincha. In the mincha itself, hakosa medaber. It has to be on that. Seems to be a machloikis rishonim, fellas, whether this goes on levaina or not. In other words, what's in this cup? Rashi in the Mishnah. Just take a quick look. Rashi in the Mishnah, fellas, on Nun Tesam Beis. Nasim bekli, right? Ubesoiche shemen. And in it is shemen. Al gabe kli Shel mincha. You put it al gabi a kli that's full of a minchas chayta loy paslo. Rashi didn't say levoina, did he? Guys, he said you put a kli of shemen. So so the Rambam says levoina. So I had this discussion with Simcha. I think it's very geschmack. A kli with shemen, it's a one-way thing. If it's reversible, it's gone. Even the kli with levoina, if the levoina was on gufa, we said you can be malak at it. You can go ahead and take it away. So memela, of course, of course, Simcha wanted a taina, as long as the levain is on the mincha, it's possible. It's only after you malakin it, what are you chayiv? So I said, so that's why he said, like the Rambam. I said, Pshat Rashi is, no, Rashi's telling you that this din of kli, that daf, you need a kli to even go ahead and entertain, to go ahead, possibly that it should be chayiv. Why? Because if the kli wasn't there, it would be possible. By Levaina, good, it's possible, but it's not possible forever, because you could be malak at it. And that would be the machlokes Eliezer's turn and Simcha's turn regarding machlokes the Rambam and Rashi. You hear where I wanted to taina. The kli is saving it. By Levaina, the kli is not saving it, because you still have the option of going ahead what. But the Rambam didn't learn like that. The Rambam, but I have Rashi. It's a pitch of a little, not a pitch, it's a nice diuk in Rashi and the Rambam, whether you're going in the Shemen or you're going by in the Levina, the difference between the two. How are we doing? Rabbi Abi, you're good? You're jet lagged, you're good, you're good to be back. And I'm in a mamad. You really feel for me.
You're not stuck there. We're stuck here. You have a front row seat.
My lashon is I'm not stuck here. I'm delayed. That's lashon. I'm not stuck. I'm delayed.
But we're stuck here. We're stuck here. You have a front row seat to Yeshuos and Fuos and Nechamos.
There's Hashem. There's Hashem. Okay, says the Mishnah. So the last Mishnah, guys, we listed, right? We listed that needs Shemen and Levaina. Remember, there was 10. There was 10. Now we're going to discuss Hagosha and Tenufa. Hagosha, you might recall, is bringing the Kli up to, this is before the Kemitza, you're bringing it up to the southwest corner of the Mizbeach. You're bringing the Kli up to the southwest corner of the Mizbeach. Says the Mishnah, Yesh Tu'unois Hagosha, V'ein Tu'unos Tenufa. There are Menachos that require Hagosha, but not Tenufa. So in other words, all you have to do is bring you out to the southwest. We're going to give 10. Guys, we're going to give 10. Okay. Before I jumped the gun. Yesh tunus hagasha vein tunus tenufa. Hagasha tenufa both. Tenufa waving v'loy hagasha not. Or v'loy tenufa v'loy hagasha. In other words, you covered all 4 possibilities. The first one, which is the majority, hagasha without tenufa. And ve'ela tunus hagasha vein tunus tenufa. Count along. Minchas hasoiles 1, Machavas 2, Marcheshes 3, Vechalis Verkikin 5. We're counting Afetana as 2. Minchas Kahanim 6, Minchas Kohen Mashiach 7, Minchas Nachrim of a Goy 8, Minchas Noshim 9, or Minchas Chayta 10. All of these require Hagosha and no Tenufa. All of them require Hagosha and no Tenufa. Reb Shimon Omer, Minchas Kahanim, or Minchas Kohen Mashiach, Ein behem Hagosha. The Minchas Kahanim and the Minchas Kohen Mashiach, Ein behem Hagosha, there is no Hagosha whatsoever. Why? Ein behem Kemitza. Since the Minchas Kahanim and the Minchas of the Chavitin of the Kohen Gadol are totally burnt, says Reb Shimon, the Hagosha is zugebunden to the dinner of Kemitza. Since there's no Kemitza, says Reb Shimon, there's no Hagosha either. So he argues on the Tanakama in those 2 cases, in the case of Minchas Chavitin and Minchas Kohen Kahanim. The Gemara is now only going to deal with case number 1, fellas. What was case number 1? Hagosha without tenufa, and we were very medayik to list 10. Because why? Because we're going to do the same thing as we did yesterday. Amar Rav Papa, kol heichet etnan esa tnan. When you learn the Menachos, you learn 10. My kamash malon, lafuke midrab shimin. The Amar, mertze chalois, mertze rakikin yavi. Kamash malon deloy. Fellas, outside. Said yesterday, Rav Shimon, if a person says, B'li neder, Harei olai lehevi me'afe sanor. That's what he says. Says the Tanakama, you have an option. Either Rikikin or Chalas. Again, remember the Chalas or Matzah, right? Either those two. Either those two. That's your choice. You cannot bring half. Says of Shimon, you could. So if Shimon has an 11th, guys, he has Afe Sanra, but he has three possibilities. Rikikin alone, Chalas alone, or 5 and 5. Therefore, that would be number 11. And therefore, when we're learning Scissor Papa 10, Lafuki Reb Shimon, who will give us 11. Okay, that's the second Pshat in Rashi, right? The first Pshat in Rashi we spoke about was the Afe Tanra, the amount of Chalas you can bring. You bring 10 Chalas, or he says you eat 10 of each, or he holds you can bring 5 and 5. Okay, Rashi says he said he already explained it, so I don't feel the need to. If Rashi explained it already, I don't feel the need. I think Baruch Hashem, it's good. Okay. Minani Mili. Okay, guys, I'll tell you a very nice diuk. When Rashi doesn't tell you Minani Mili, it means it's obvious. When Minani Mili, it's not so obvious. There are different options. The options over here is, why do you're telling me these kabarnas need hagasha? How do you know? How do you know they need hagasha? Right? That's really what it is. So Minani Mili, how do you know that what the dinim that we said in the Mishnah regarding hagasha? The Tana Rabbanan. Okay, the Rabbanan learn. Now the pasuk that we have to know is Vayikra Beis pasuk Ches. Vayikra Beis pasuk Ches. Okay, I think one of the advantages of the art school Gemara is it's the Ois V'Hadar. They always quote the Gemaras. That the only downside to using the old Shas, Nasan, and Benji is you don't have the sukkim on the side. So you need a chumash available. But you get the chumash right there, and then you're good. State Ve'Vesa Esa Mincha Asher Ye'asa. This is by the Mincha Marcheshes, guys. This is by the Minchas Marcheshes, the deep pan, fried pan Mincha. Ve'Vesa Esa Mincha Asher Ye'asa Me'ela LaHashem. So we have the Hagasha written openly by the Minchas Machavas. The Minchas Marcheshes. The Minchas Marcheshes, guys, is a carbon nedava. The Minchas Marcheshes is a carbon nedava. Good? So given Mefurish, you need Hagasha by a Marcheshes, but who adin any other carbon nedava needs Hagasha. However, we're going to darshan from the Heivesa, the Hikriva, other places that are not Minchas Nedava, right? We're going to darshan from the Vesa, the Griva, other Kabbanas as well. That's the setup for the rest of the share. That's mamish the setup for the rest of the share. So we need limudim, guys, from Minchas Chayta. Why? Because it's not proper Nedava, guys. We need a limud for Minchas Saita. It's not proper Nedava. That needs Hagasha, and for the carbon Oimer. It's not proper Nedava. So that's the setup. We're going to need limudim for Oimer, Saita, and Minchas Chayta. Okay, says the Gemara. Menani Mili. Tana Rabbanon. Ilu nema ve'vesa she'yasa me'ela l'Hashem ve'kriva elakayin ve'kisha. That's the pasuk. The one word we left out is what? Ve'vesa mincha. You left out the word mincha. That knows the pasuk says mincha. But if it would have said ve'vesa without saying the word mincha, hayisi oimer, I would have said ainly shetayin hagasha ela kaimitz bilvad. I would have said the kaimitz alone. Because what does the pasuk say, fellas? Pasuk ve'vesa mincha asher yasa me'ela la Hashem. Guys, I say hagasha is why the part that goes to Hashem, the kamitza, the part that goes on the mizbeach. Then I would say only that needs there's a din of hagasha. You bring the kaimitz in a pan, bring it over and touch up, right? Yeah, that's what I would say. That you bring on, you touch up. Bilvad mincha minayin. How do you know the whole carbon mincha? Tamad loyma mincha. So that the pasuk says ve'vesa es mincha. You know what it means? Not just the kaimetz, but the whole mincha before the kamitza. Fire the kamitza, you're going to bring it up and touch up. That's what the word mincha tells me. Good? Now, minchas chayta minayin. How do you know the minchas chayta? Now, what's the problem? Take a look. The Shita Mekubet says, hey, guys. Beautiful. Shita Mekubet says, hey, underline it if you own a Gemara. Just underline that you should go to hey, it's geschmack. Minchas chayta minayin. Hey. The Bishlema Shar Menachos, Bishlema all the other Menachos, Ksiv, it says what? Zayis Tyrus HaMincha. We saw earlier, this is the Tyrus of the Mincha, Tyra Achas, the Chol Menachos. The one Torah for Menachos. So just like the Macheshes needs Hagasha, so too all Minchas would need Hagasha. Well, Minchas Chaita ain't bechlal. Minchas Chaita is not in the rule. The Hagasha be Minchas Nedava Kesiv. The Chesiv be Shemen ulevaina. Ube Menachos Chaita ain't bolei Shemen v'loy levaina. Says beautifully. Why do you need a libra for Minchas Chaita? Because Minchas Chaita does not have Shemen ulevaina. It doesn't have Shemen ulevaina. It's not like an Adava. The Mela, since it doesn't have Shemen ulevaina, it's not like an Adava. The Mela, you need a special limit for it. That was my introduction to this the chelik of the shir, that we need limudim for things that are not nedavis. We need limudim for saita, we need limudim for aimer, and we need limudim for chayta. Right? Very geshmak. Even though there's a zayis taris l'chol menachos, that's for a general rule of menachos that we don't have little reasons to say not. So therefore, that's what the Gemara is saying, that minchas chayta that doesn't need shemen levaina. Therefore, I would think maybe it's not b'chal agasha. How do you know? I can't learn it out from zayis taris ha'oila. Zayis Teres Chatas, Zayis Teres Mincha, third time's a charm. Zayis Teres Mincha, I will learn there's a Mincha, Minayin, Tamalaymer, Es HaMincha. So guys, now let's look at the pasuk. Ve'vese Es HaMincha, Asher Yeyasa, Me'ela Lashem. The Lashem tells me, I would think it's the Kaimitz. Therefore, the word Mincha tells me the whole Mincha needs Hagasha. And the word says, Es HaMincha, the Es, that it goes ahead and includes what? It includes the Minchas Chaita. Includes the Minchas Chaita. Now, we know one thing, learning Gemara for many, many, many years. The Torah only tells me something that I would not know from Svara. The Torah only tells me something I would know from Svara. What the Gemara is about to do is challenge, why do I need a limud of Es Mincha to tell me Chaiter? I have a limud that Chaiter, even without the pasuk, would be B'chal Agasha, guys. In other words, if I have a mehat sad to learn that it needs hagasha, I don't need esa mincha to teach it to me. The rest of the daf is going to be going along those lines. If I can learn something out of a mehat sad, right? Simcha told me something nice, guys. What's the difference between a binyan av and a memetzino? Because a binyan av is what it's called. A memetzino is how it works, is the action. It's a geshmak. A binyan av this is the type of like you would say kal v'chomer, and then you say the kal v'chomer. So binyan av is what it's called, and the memetzino is pashut, is how it works. There's nothing better in life to be able to learn with your son Yerushalayim Kodesh. That doesn't get any better. Nothing. Says geshmak. Vidinhu, guys, what's the vidin? Vidin that I would know minchas choite needs hagosha without esa mincha. Without esa mincha, I would know it. That's the din. Now, let's go to the mechanics. Nemar, change the gersa. Nemar haba, I'm based by minchas chayva. It says haba by minchas chayva, by that's mitzvah v'chayta. V'nemar haba, minchas nedava, and it says lashon haba by minchas nedava. Ma minchas nedava, just like the minchas of nedava. Again, your source is marcheshes. Tuna hagasha, not minchas chayta, tuna hagasha. So therefore, why do I need a pasuk esa mincha? I'll learn out of memetzinu. We find the lashon. We find that minchas it says haba by nedava, it needs hagasha. It says haba by minchas chayta, it needs also haba. You bring a carbon bevesa. It's not a gzeir shava, guys. It's just we find commonality. You bring carbon mincha. Oh, you bring carbon mincha nedava, it needs hagasha. So too what a minchas chayta also should need it. I'll ask. Mal the minchas nedava she came to una shemen levayna. This is very geshmak with the shitim gebetzes, guys. Very geshmak the shitim gebetzes, right? Mal the minchas nedava. You know why it needs hagasha? Shetuna shemen levayna. It needs shemen levayna, correct? Since it needs shemen levayna, that's why it has the chumra of hagasha. Mashenke the minchas chayta, which is dry. There's no hagasha. Minchas chayta techiach. Minchas Saita will disprove you. Guys, does Minchas Saita need Hagasha? Say yes. Yes. Okay, we're going to learn it. We're going to learn it out soon. The Gemara assumes that you know the next piece of Gemara. We're going to have a limud to learn Minchas Saita. Now, Minchas Saita doesn't have Shemen. Minchas Saita doesn't have Levaina, and still needs Hagasha. So you can't tell me that's the factor that would cause Hagasha. Minchas Dav has Shemen Levaina, Minchas Saita doesn't. Okay, Minchas Saita also doesn't, but it also needs Hagasha. Mala Minchas Saita came to a Tenufa. You know what? Maybe it needs Hagasha, even though it has Shem and Levina, it doesn't, it has Tenufa. The Kohen waves the basket. Says the Gemara, Minchas Nedava Tachia. Minchas Nedava does not require Tenufa. The Chazer Adin, okay, now, what's our din? Always, guys, when learning, always let's focus. We want to learn out Minchas Chaita, bin a Mehat Sad from the Dava to Saita. We want to learn out Minchas Chaita from a Mehat Sad to the Dava and Saita. Good. Loi Rizeh Rizeh. The Shem and Levina of the Mincha is not like the Saita. Loi Rizeh Rizeh. The Tzad of the Mincha of Tenufa is not like the Mincha is the Dava is not like, doesn't require Tenufa. Hatzad Shavehen between the Saita and the Dava Shavu Lekamitza. Both in the Dava and the Saita require Kamitza. V'shavu Hagasha, and they also require Hagasha. Afani Evi Minchas Chaita sheshavu lehen lekamitza and tishavu lehen lahagasha. So, in other words, so why do I need a pasuk of Esa Mincha to include a Minchas Chaita lehen Hagasha? I can learn it out of a Mehat Sad from Minchas Nedava and Minchas Saita. Right? I can learn it out of a Mehat Sad. The Tnufa, the level of Shem and Levina wasn't because of Saita. The Tnufa because of the Nedava. Chazer Adin, they both had Kamitza, Hagasha, who Adin Mat the Chaita. So that's, we're holding Medikasha. We're holding Medikasha. Why do you need Esa Mincha? Says the Gemara, boom. Mehat Sad doesn't work. L'mal Mehat Sad, again, the Mehat Sad is in the Dava and the Saita. Shebehen Shakain, Huchsharu Lavai, Ba'asha Kiba'ani. Whatever your financial status is, you're bringing, it's the same. When you're poor or when you're rich, that's what you're bringing. Guys, there's no rich or poor by Minchas Machavas. It's a Machavas. There's no rich or poor by Minchas Silas, it's a Silas. There's no rich or poor by a Saita, it is what it is. The oil of Yoyred, the Minchas Chaita is only for the destitute, the Evyoin, the guy who couldn't afford birds, who couldn't afford a Kevesh. Right? Taima ben Minchas Chaita shelehuch shaloi lavai ba'asher kiba'ani. It's not the same. He's not going to bring it like a nashir, like a person who can afford a kevesh. So what did I just do? I destroyed the kalvachoin. I destroyed your Matzad, correct? Guys, I just jumped out your Matzad from Nidava and Saita. Talmud Loimar Esa Mincha. Very good. So what do you know? That's what you need a pasuk for, because you cannot learn out Chaita from Mincha and Saita. That was the attempt, to learn out the Dava, Chaita from the Dava and Saita. We can't do it. Therefore, since we can't learn it out, you need the pasuk. Now, so this is Minchas Chaita. Rav Shimon Omer ve'evesa l'rabbis Minchas ha'omer lehagasha. The word ve'evesa comes to go ahead and include the Minchas Omer lehagasha. Now, just important Rashi. Rashi says, Rav Shimon the Tanakama late pligi. They're not arguing. Elamar darish chada, umar darish chada. They're both going to darshan, guys. They're both going to darshan. They all hold the same halacha. The question is how you arrive at it. Everyone agrees that the minchas saita needs hagasha. Everyone says the minchas omer needs hagasha. But the way they arrive at it is what is very different. The way they arrive at it is quite different. Okay, as we'll see. Now, what does Rav Shimon say? Says Rav Shimon Omer, ve'evesa. Again, we have a pasuk. Ve'evesa es mincha asher yasa me'el Hashem ve'kriva. The two verbs we need, ve'evesa and ve'kriva, bringing and bringing close. Okay, what do we say? Why do we, let's go. Right. Do you hear noise? People talking? Okay, Baruch Hashem. Okay, good. Anyway, Rav Shimon Omer, ve'evesa l'rabbis minchas omer lahagasha. V'cheinu omer ve'evesim es omer reishis kitzirchem el hakoyim. So guys, since it says ve'evesim es omer, it's megala that the word ve'evesa in the pasuk by the Marcheshes is going on the minchas omer. We find a commonality in that word, right? Ve'griva, however, the word ve'griva, the rabbis minchas saita, to include minchas saita lahagasha. Guys, this is how the Gemara previously knew that the Saita needed Hagasha, right? We were learning out the Chaita. We said that even though it's Tachiach, but it needs Hagasha. This is how the Gemara knew in the previous from this limud, this is how they knew there's such a minchas soita in hagasha. V'cheinu oimer, v'hikru v'yisa el mizbeach. Okay, so now we have two limudim. We have a limud of minchas oimer from Evesa. We have a limud of the hikriva minchas soita from hagasha. Good. So now we're going to question the need for the hikriva. Now we're going to question the hikriva. We're going to question that, okay? The hikriva, we're going to question that. Says the Gemara. What's the question? B'dinhu. Since we can learn out minchas soita from a mehat sad, why is it necessary to say v'hikriva? Why does it necessary to say v'hikriva? Says the Gemara the following: B'dinhu. Uma minchas soita she'ena tu'una tenufa. Minchas soita we saw does not need waving. Tu'una hagasha. But as we learned out from the word es ha-mincha, it requires hagasha. Minchas soita, the mincha of the soita, she'tu'una tenufa, the minchas of a soita that requires tenufa, einay din she'tu'una hagasha. Should it be hagasha? So I can learn one up. I can learn the soita from the chayta. Guys, mad that the chayta needs hagasha, even though it doesn't have tenufa. Minchas soita that needs tenufa, einay din that needs hagasha. So why do I need v'hikriva to tell it to me? I can learn it from a mehatzad. Again, the same limud as the previous. I'll ask, Mala minchas chayta shekein ba chitin. What's the ingredient of the minchas chayta? It's wheat. Minchas ma she'en kein what? Ma she'en kein the chayta is barley. The reason you need hagasha by the mincha of a chayta is because it's wheat. But barley, even though the minchas soita needs tenufa, it's barley, so maybe that's a chumrah, and you don't need what? Hagasha. The Gemara asks that minchas oimer tachiach. The oimer is barley, and it needs hagasha. Mala minchas oimer shekein tuna shemen ulevaina. Minchas chayta tachiach. The chazar adin. Okay, guys, now, here's our setup. We're learning at soita from chayta and oimer. We're learning at soita from chayta and oimer. Okay, the soita has what? Has tenufa. Minchas, the other one doesn't have tenufa. The other one, the chayta doesn't have tenufa. The chayta is what? Is wheat, and that's barley. So we have the oimer tachiach. So we have two things to go ahead. We have the minchas chayta, we have the soita, and we want to learn out from a mehat sad of chayta and oimer. Good, that's our setup. The chazar adin will throw the minchas soita into the hopper and will say loyri zeh kiri zeh. Well, loyri zeh, the minchas soita is not like the minchas oimer. Loyri zeh kiri zeh, the minchas oimer is not like the minchas soita. Asar shavash lemehem between the chayta and the oimer sheshava lekemitza v'shava lehagasha. Afaniyevi minchas soita sheshava lehem lekemitza tishava lehagasha. Now, so what's the kasha? So why do I need v'hikriva? Why do I need a pasuk? If I can learn from a mehat sad, minchas soita from oimer and chayta, I should be good. I got a kasha. Mala at sad shava, the oimer and the chayta, shebehen, shechein lehuchshu lavoi kemach. Taima minchas soita shehuchshu lavoi kemach. Guys, soilus is fine flour. Both the chayta and the oimer is fine flour. It has to be ground many times. But since the soita did an action of an animal, we give an animal food, we give a barley, and also it's not fine. So Memela, soita has something that the other two don't. So maybe since they're soilus, that's why it needs hagasha. But what? But soita, which is kemach, maybe not, right? Therefore, what do you have to say? Talmud loima, you have to conclude v'hikriva. Talmud loima, you need a griva to tell me what? Minchas soita. And that's how the Gemara knew before, was learning a mehatzad between the dava and soita to minchas chayta, correct? That's how we knew that the minchas soita requires a gasha because of hikriva. So again, just in summary, what we said so far, we said every korban nidar, we have 10 korbanos that require hagasha. Some that's tenufa, but we're not dealing with that. We're dealing with the hagasha. We said minchas nidava is zayis teres nidava. We have from acheshes. From acheshes, from the pasuk, we're able to include not only the koimets but the whole mincha, because it says mincha. From es mincha, we included minchas chayta, and we needed the pasuk. The ikriva is to include minchas soita, and we needed the pasuk, and we proved it because the matzah did not work out. continuing along the same line of reasoning, right? Rabbi Yehuda Omer, vehevesa l'rabbis minchas saita. So he does not, because this was the Rashi I pointed out to you. They don't argue. They just question is, where do you get it from? Do you get it from the Griva or you get it from Vevesa? Where do you get it from? But they all agree that the minchas saita will need what? Will need Hagasha. The Ridom vehesel rabbis minchas saita l'Hagasha. V'cheinu Omer, vehebias karbana aleha. And Vehavi Kabbalah Aleha, so you see the commonality where it says Vehavi, and Vehavi is by the Saita. So now you don't need a pasuk for what? You don't need a pasuk for what? For Omer. Ma taima midinu kaasya. We learned that Omer needs Sagosha. We can learn it from a Mehatzad. Uma minchas chayta she'ena tuna tenufa. Minchas chayta that does not require tenufa. Right? It doesn't minchas chayta. We clearly doesn't require tenufa. Tuna hagasha minchas oimer shetuna tenufa ena din shetuna hagasha. Mala minchas chayta shekaim ba chitin. It comes from wheat. Minchas and mashen kain oimer. Minchas chayta techiach. It also comes from barley. Mala minchas chayta shekaim ba levara avain. The maskeres oven he. It comes to go ahead and put to trial. Minchas chayta techiach. So now, guys, we're learning at oimer from what? We're learning. Look at me. We're learning Omer from Saita and Chayta. We're learning Omer from Saita and Chayta. Good. The Chazar Adin, Loi Rizeh, the commonality of Chayta is not like Saita. Loi Rizeh, the Saita is not like the Chayta. Ma'at Sara Shava Shebehen between the Chayta and the Saita. That rhymes Shebehen Shekain Shava Lekamitza v'Shava Lagasha. Afani Avi Min Chesa Omer Shavas Lehen Lekamitza Tishava Lehen Lagasha. Geschmack. You learned it out. Rabbi Yehuda learned it out on Mehatzad. You know Omer from Chayta, right? You know Omer from Chayta and Saita. Yes? Guys, you learn Omer from Chayta and Saita, yes? Good. If that's the case, why did Rabbi Shimon have to learn it out from the Hevi, the Rabbis Minchat So Omer, Lahagasha? Go up, guys. You see about 12 lines. It says Rabbi Shimon Omer. About 12, 13 lines down. You see Rabbi Shimon Omer in the Gemara? Rabbi Shimon Omer, Ve'evesa, the pasuk Ve'evesa, L'Rabbis Minchas Omer L'Hagasha. What problem Rabbi Shimon have with the Mehatzad? I just learned it out from Chayta and Saita. You'll say that this one needs Trufa, this doesn't need Trufa. This one is barley, this one's wheat. The bottom line is, there must have been a question that Rav Shimon had that he could not learn it out of the Mehatzad, fellas. There must have been a question that Rav Shimon had that he couldn't learn it out from Yehuda's Mehatzad. Says the Gemara, "My parachta, Rav Shimon, harachachi." Malas harashava. Again, this harashava is what? Is chayta and saita. Malas harashava shebehen shekain mitsuyin. You go ahead and they're what? They're yearly. In other words, there's no set time what for the minchas chayta. There's no set time for what? For the minchas saita. Masha ein kain what? Masha ein kain. The minchas omer is brought a specific time. That's the kasha, and that's why Reb Shimon could not learn out saita omer from saita and chayta. Reb Yehuda, why didn't he hold this was a kasha? Adrabah, b'ham mitzuyet fei. Right? Right? So this sometimes you don't find it at all. Guys, to be a chayta, to be a chatas, let's be very good. There's no guarantee a person Klal Yisrael is going to be do Thomas B'Tish Kedashav or Shuas Pitoy or Shuas Eidos. And even if he does, he can bring a sheep. And even if he does, he can bring birds. And even if he does, in other words, there's a far difference that he's not going to bring it. A saita, every year the Omer is brought. So it might be more common, but it's not necessarily going to happen more. So that's the kasha. It might be more common. Adarabba, Mitzuyat Fei, Chadasim Lemishkachas Laklal. Right, minchas chayta. It's possible you won't see it at all. Mashen came the omer, which you're going to go ahead what? Mashen came the omer, which you're going to go ahead and see. Mashen came the omer, which you're going to go ahead and see. Says the Gemara Vaita. Now, why Reb Shimon, he learned Ve'evesa for the Omer, and Rabbi Yehuda used it for the Minchas Saita. Again, they argued on Ve'evesa, the drasha. Rabbi Shimon used it for the Omer, and Rabbi Yehuda used it for the Saita. Oyena Omer Ve'evesa, Ela Sheyachid Misnadev, Umevi Mincha Acheres, Chutz Me'ela. I would think a person, Ve'evesa, maybe guys, Ve'evesa can only bring these five kabbanis. Soilis, Machvas, Macheshes, Afesan, or Kikin. Maybe it's going on those five. Again, this is speaking about what? The pasuk is speaking about the Macheshes. Ve'evesa es mincha, asher yasa me'ela. Guys, me'ela, you know what me'ela means? Me'ela can mean what? Those five. Those five. So in other words, why did Rabbi Shimon need to learn it out from Avesa, the Minchas Omer, and why did Rabbi Yehuda have to learn from Avesa, the Minchas Saita? So we're going through the dynamics of why they came to this point. We're going through the dynamics of why they came to this point. Maybe he can bring something else. Right? For example, maybe he can bring a carbon of barley. Fellas, maybe he says, I'm poor. I can't afford wheat. Let me bring in a dova of barley. V'dinhu, that he should be able to. Sibur mevi mincha min achitim. That sibur means achitim chayva. Shtei lechem, guys. It's a chiv. It's bought from barley. Wheat. Shtei lechem is bought from wheat. Umevi mincha min hasairin, the chayva, and the minchas oimer is the chayva. There's two karbanis, guys. There's two karbanis, right? The minchas oimer, which is from barley, and the minchas shtei lechem, which is what? Which is wheat. So I think this is a very chassidish word. It's a very nice chassidish word, actually. Before Man Torah, we were like behemoths. The food of an animal is barley. After we went ahead, 49 days, we counted up, right? Shiva Shavuos Tisbu, we counted up. Now we get to Shavuos. Kabbalah Torah, Shem is in a mention. Eat the chitim. That's the very nice. Okay, says the Gemara. So maybe mincha min asayrim. So you have a chiyuv, one for wheat and one for barley. I would think so too. Af yochid shemevi mincha min achitin nedava, yavi mincha min asayrim nedava. He can bring wheat nedava. Why can't he bring a barley nedava? Talmud Loimar, the pasuk says me'ele she'enli ela ele. Only these can brought, and you can't bring anything else. Notice ele. Azoidav sign. These are the nedavas you can bring. Soiles, machvas, marcheshes, afesano, rukigan, chalis. That's it. Nothing else. Ayena oimer eila, another shaila, ela, loimar, hariyalai mincha, shemevi es chamishtin. Maybe you can bring, when a person says a lie, he has to bring all five. When a person says it's upon me to bring a mincha, so maybe he has to bring all five. Right? Talmud loimar, mei eila, from the five, man, all the five. Ratza achas, maybe if he wants to bring one, he brings one. Ratza chamishtan, maybe he wants to bring five, he can bring five. Reb Shimon Omer, esa mincha l'Rabbi Shom Menachos, k'goy minchas nachrim, minchas nachrim l'hagasha. Yachol shani marba av shtei lechem v'lechem apanim l'hagasha. I might think they need hagasha as well. Talmud Loimar, asher yeosa me'ele. It says me'ele, similar to these. Maroya l'Rabbi Shom Menachos l'hoitzi shtei lechem v'lechem apanim. Why do we include all the other menachos le'inyan hagasha, but shtei lechem and lechem apanim do not? Guys, the shtei lechem and lechem apanim do not need. Shtei lechem needs tenufa. Lechem apanim needs neither, right? Marba needs shar menachos sheyesh lehem leishim, because it's a part that goes to the fire. U'moitzi needs shtei lechem v'lechem apanim she'ein behem leishim. Nothing goes to the fire. Gemara v'alei minchas t'sachim kula leishim. Minchas t'sachim, the whole thing is burnt. Yachol yeitun hagasha. I might think it needs hagasha because the whole thing goes to the fire. Talmud Loimar, it says v'griva, right? It says v'higriva, and something that what you bring close. So what's the limit v'higriva? What's the limit? It says v'higriva v'hafikte. We used v'higriva already for minchas soita, right? That means hagasha. So how could you use it to tell me that what the minchas nesachim, even though what is kulul ishim yachol hu she'ena hagasha? How do you know that? Says the Gemara, it could have said v'hikriv, and it says v'hikriva, right? It says v'hikriv, it could say v'hikriva. Okay, I'm going to stop over here because I have to go. It's getting run on at the time where I run on, and you guys are tired anyway.